Welcome back to Room 57, where we delve into strange, mysterious, and chilling crime stories. Today, we'll uncover a case that shocked the community of Australia, the bathroom mystery. This is a story of greed, deceit, and the cruelty hidden behind a seemingly normal family, a mother, a son, and a horrific crime that no one could have foreseen. Zachary Rebelo is accused of killing his mother, Colleen Rebelo, solely for the sake of life insurance money, and all of this happened in a cold bathroom. But will the truth come to light? What's behind this perfect plot? Let's dive into the details of this terrifying case. Part 1. The story of a caring mother, Colleen Rebelo, a 58-year-old woman living in Picton, Perth, Australia, led a simple and quiet life that few people knew about. She was a devoted mother of 4, always putting her children first and doing everything in her power to ensure their happiness and well-being. However, behind her seemingly ordinary life was a mysterious story that no one could have predicted. Colleen was a loving, caring mother, but her tragic death would turn into a horrifying crime that would shake the community to its core. A caring mother Colleen raised for children and dedicated her entire life to them. She was a mother who loved her children unconditionally, always making sure they were well taken care of and raised with strong values. She lived with her family in a modest home in Picton, a peaceful suburb in Perth, Australia. While her life wasn't one of extravagance or glamour, she prioritized her family and gave her all to make sure her children grew up happy and well-adjusted. But all of that was about to change in a way no one could have ever anticipated. On a spring day in May, Colleen would become the victim of a cruel plot, orchestrated by someone she trusted most, her own son. Colleen was the epitome of a mother who would sacrifice anything for the well-being of her children. She woke up early to make breakfast for her kids, spent evenings telling them stories, and teaching them life lessons about respect, love, and family. Their family life was full of love and warmth, much like any other family. But little did anyone know that hidden beneath the surface, a dark and deadly plan was unfolding. May 25, 2020, the day that changed everything. In May 25, 2020, Colleen's sudden death sent shockwaves through the community. Her death wasn't just a family tragedy, it became a major crime mystery when Fabian Rebelo, Colleen's youngest son, returned home after work. He discovered a horrifying scene in the bathroom. His mother was found slumped in the shower, with the water still running. Fabian immediately tried to perform CPR and called emergency services, but it was too late. Colleen was already dead. At first, no one suspected foul play. It seemed like a simple accident, perhaps a tragic fall while taking a shower. However, the unexpected events that followed Colleen's death would turn everything upside down. Fabian, the youngest son, along with Colleen's friends and family, did not think that anything unusual had occurred. But this was just the beginning of a story that would eventually become a national scandal. In the initial hours after Colleen's discovery, Fabian expressed his grief and attempted to save his mother while waiting for paramedics. Meanwhile, Zachary Rebelo, Colleen's eldest son, was not home at the time. He was not the one to discover the situation, but his absence would later play a key role in the investigation and raise further suspicions. What happened afterward? After Colleen's death, suspicions began to rise. It was discovered that just 1 week before her death, Andre had taken out 3 life insurance policies on his mother. This was an odd and suspicious act, and more so, Andre was the sole beneficiary of all 3 policies. What made matters even stranger was that, shortly after his mother's death, Andre was quick to request compensation from the insurance companies. Despite the fact that Colleen's death didn't appear suspicious at first, Andre's immediate actions and eagerness to claim the insurance payout raised alarms. The 3 life insurance policies Andre had taken out on his mother, totaling hundreds of thousands of dollars, were signed just 1 week before Colleen passed away. Andre was the only beneficiary of these policies. This raised many questions about the sudden interest in claiming the insurance money, and how it all seemed so perfectly timed with his mother's untimely death. While the community and Colleen's family didn't initially suspect foul play, Andre's swift and seemingly calculated actions soon drew the attention of the insurance companies, and eventually the authorities. However, things didn't stop there. Andre's actions would reveal a much darker truth. The motive behind the life insurance policies. These life insurance policies weren't just about the money. They were part of a much larger financial scheme. Andre had been facing massive debt, having made several unsuccessful investments in cryptocurrency and other ventures. His debts were mounting, and he had no way out. On the surface, Andre appeared to be living a successful and glamorous life. He had a beautiful girlfriend, Gracie Piscopo, a model and social media influencer, and a seemingly luxurious lifestyle. But in reality, Andre was deep in debt and struggling to keep up the appearance of wealth. The authorities discovered that Andre had been in financial trouble for some time, and his debts had been growing out of control. This information revealed that Andre had a clear motive for wanting to take his mother's life. He needed the insurance money to escape his financial woes. By taking out these life insurance policies, Andre ensured that he would be the sole beneficiary, which meant he stood to gain hundreds of thousands of dollars from his mother's death. The police also uncovered that Andre had submitted fake documents to back up his claims. This included a forged coroner's report and a falsified will that purportedly showed Colleen's wishes to leave everything to him. These actions, along with the suspicious timing of the life insurance policies, led the authorities to question Andre's role in his mother's death. What initially seemed like a simple, tragic accident was beginning to look like a well-planned, deliberate murder for financial gain. Uncovering the forged documents as the investigation unfolded, more and more layers of deception began to surface. Andre's quick move to claim the life insurance benefits, combined with the fake documents, raised suspicions about his involvement in his mother's death. The police were able to verify that the coroner's report was forged, and the will that had been submitted was also determined to be fake. This was the moment when the case began to shift from a routine investigation into something much darker. Part 2. The life insurance secret after Colleen's death. The situation surrounding her passing started to unravel in ways that no one had expected. What initially appeared to be a tragic accident now seemed more like a carefully executed scheme for financial gain. The 3 life insurance policies that Andre had taken out on his mother, each one naming him as the sole beneficiary, became the focal point of the investigation. These policies were not only suspicious in their timing, but also in their amount. It was only after Colleen's death that Andre, seemingly without hesitation, began the process of claiming a substantial sum from the insurance companies. The questions that arose were impossible to ignore. Why would Andre take out these policies just days before his mother's death? What was his true motivation? And why had he been so quick to claim the insurance money? Andre's urgency and the insurance company's doubts at first. The insurance companies didn't think much of the claim, but it was Andre's urgency that started to make them raise their eyebrows. He filed the claims almost immediately, without any waiting period, without any sense of mourning, and with what appeared to be an eagerness that was almost too deliberate. The policies themselves raised suspicions, as they had been purchased a mere week before Colleen's death. But it was Andre's relentless pursuit of the payout, combined with his sudden need to access large sums of money, that caused alarm bells to go off. Insurance companies, after all, are in the business of assessing risk. When a policyholder dies, they investigate, but in this case, it was far more than just a matter of investigating a claim. The fact that Andre was the sole beneficiary of the policies, and the fact that he immediately filed claims within hours of his mother's death, seemed highly suspicious. That alone wouldn't have been enough to draw conclusions, but it was the documents that Andre provided that truly crossed the line. The forged documents and the cover-up. First major red flag was Andre's submission of the forged documents. The coroner's report, which he submitted to the insurance companies, was proven to be a fake. This was no simple error. It was a deliberate attempt to mislead the authorities and the insurance companies into believing that Colleen's death was accidental, when in fact it was anything but. Along with the fake coroner's report, Andre also presented a falsified will, one that stated Colleen had left everything to him. What was even more chilling was that these actions were not done in secret. Andre, who had been active on social media, continued to post about his perfect life even as the investigation into his mother's death deepened. His social media pages painted a picture of a young man with everything in order, living a lavish lifestyle with his girlfriend, Gracie Piscopo, and enjoying the high life. The truth, however, was starkly different. Behind the facade, Andre was deeply in debt, facing financial ruin. His investments in cryptocurrency had failed, and he had no way out. The only solution in his mind was to kill the one person who could solve all his problems. His mother died. It's easy to imagine how someone in Andre's position might become desperate. He had worked tirelessly to create an image of success, but the reality was a crushing weight of debt and failure. And in that moment, the thought of a life insurance payout was too tempting to resist. Andre had orchestrated his mother's death in the most cold-hearted way possible, and the use of forged documents only cemented his involvement in the crime. But while Andre's actions were calculated and cruel, the police were just beginning to piece together the truth. The forged documents, along with the timing of the life insurance policies, pointed to a deliberate, premeditated murder. The fact that Andre had gone to such lengths to create a false narrative surrounding his mother's death showed the depth of his deception. The investigation unfolds. As the investigation continued, it became clear that Andre's story didn't add up. There were too many inconsistencies in his timeline, and too many signs that pointed to a carefully crafted plan. The police began to focus on Andre, scrutinizing his every move in the days and weeks following Colleen's death. They discovered that not only had he taken out the insurance policies, But he had also been manipulating those around him, including his girlfriend Gracie Piscopo. Gracie, who had been portrayed in the media as Andre's supportive girlfriend, began to distance herself from him as the investigation progressed. In interviews, she claimed to have no idea about the life insurance policies or the financial struggles Andre was facing. She seemed shocked by the allegations, but there were whispers that Andre had kept his troubles hidden from her, maintaining a facade of success even in private. Gracie's public statements were carefully worded, almost as if she had been coached on what to say, but the police weren't convinced. They believed that Andre's relationship with Gracie, like everything else in his life, was part of an elaborate charade. In the meantime, the police found evidence that Andre had been deep in debt, facing financial ruin on multiple fronts. He had been lying to his girlfriend, telling her that he was about to come into a large sum of money through a cryptocurrency deal. But that was just another lie. He was living on borrowed time, and the debt was mounting faster than he could handle. It was clear to the authorities that Andre had been under immense pressure, and his decision to take out the life insurance policies, forge the documents, and kill his own mother were all motivated by one thing: money. The plot unravels. The more the investigation unfolded, the more disturbing the truth became. Andre had carefully orchestrated his mother's death, knowing that with her gone, he would inherit everything. His mother, Colleen, had been the only person who could solve his financial problems, and he was willing to kill her to make it happen. But there was another layer to this plot. Andre wasn't just interested in the money from the life insurance. He was also trying to escape the consequences of his own failures. He had made risky investments, lied to those around him, and built an illusion of success that had slowly started to crumble. Killing Colleen was his way of ensuring that he could continue living the lie he had created for himself. The fact that he had planned everything so carefully, right down to the forged documents and fake coroner's report, showed just how far he was willing to go to maintain his facade. As the evidence piled up, Andre's guilt became undeniable. The police were able to trace his every move, examining the documents, the timeline, and his financial situation. The picture they painted was one of a man desperate to escape the consequences of his own choices. Andre had chosen to murder the one person who could have saved him, not just for the money, but because he was too far gone to consider any other option. Part 3. The cruel plot and the motive behind Andre's plan to murder his mother, Colleen, didn't come to fruition overnight. It was the result of months of careful planning, deceit, and an unyielding desire to solve his financial troubles. At the surface, Andre appeared to be a successful young man living a happy life with his girlfriend, Gracie Piscopo, and sharing a picture-perfect life on social media. But beneath that facade was a much darker truth. Andre was drowning in debt, having made reckless investments that had failed spectacularly, and was now facing financial ruin. For months, Andre had been living a double life, one that was full of lies and manipulation. He had projected an image of success, carefully curating his online presence to give the impression that everything in his life was perfect. His social media posts showed him enjoying lavish vacations, spending time with his model girlfriend, living the high life. But in reality, Andre's finances were in shambles. He had accumulated over 100,000 AUD in debt, largely from unsuccessful cryptocurrency investments and other failed business ventures. The desperation behind the maskender's financial situation was dire. He had borrowed large sums of money from friends and family, and his debts were only growing. Despite his attempts to downplay the seriousness of his situation, he knew that he was running out of time. The pressure of his mounting debts weighed heavily on him, but his pride and obsession with maintaining an image of success prevented him from seeking help or admitting his failures. To those around him, he appeared to be on top of the world, but in reality, he was slowly spiraling out of control. His relationship with Gracie, his girlfriend, was another aspect of his life that he had manipulated. He had convinced her that he was on the verge of a huge financial breakthrough. He often told her that he was about to come into a large sum of money from a cryptocurrency deal that was just around the corner. In truth, there was no deal, and his financial situation had only worsened. But Gracie, like everyone else in Andre's life, had no idea about the severity of his debts. To her, Andre seemed like a charming and successful man with everything under control. Little did she know, Andre's lies and manipulation would soon take a far darker turn. With no way out of his financial problems and no hope of paying off his debts, Andre's thoughts turned to the one person who could solve all of his issues, his mother. Colleen was the only family member who had the means to bail him out of his financial crisis. She was in good health, had a modest retirement fund, and most importantly, she was someone Andre could manipulate. He knew that Colleen loved him unconditionally, and he knew that if he could get her to sign off on life insurance policies that named him as the sole beneficiary, he would be set for life. It was the perfect plan. The life insurance policy Sanders' first step was to take out 3 life insurance policies on his mother, each one naming him as the sole beneficiary. He purchased the policies just 1 week before Colleen's death, which was a calculated decision that would later raise red flags. Andre knew that he had to act quickly and decisively if he wanted to ensure that everything was in place before his mother's death. The policies were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and Andre was counting on them to secure his future. All he had to do was wait for the right moment. But that moment didn't come until Colleen's sudden death in May 2020. After her passing, Andre wasted no time in submitting the claims for the insurance payouts. He was relentless in his pursuit of the money, and the timing of his actions only seemed to confirm the suspicions of the authorities. Why had Andre been so quick to claim the insurance money? Why had he been so eager to take advantage of his mother's death? His actions were suspicious, and the police began to focus their investigation on him. The planning and execution of the murder be the time Colleen died. Andre had already been planning the murder for months. His desperation had reached a breaking point, and he knew that he had no other option but to kill the person who could solve all of his problems. In his mind, the risk of getting caught was worth it. Colleen's death would provide him with the financial freedom he so desperately needed. On the day of the murder, Andre put his plan into motion. He waited for the perfect opportunity when Colleen would be alone in the house. He knew that she trusted him completely, and he used that trust to his advantage. Colleen had no reason to suspect anything was wrong. She had no idea that her own son, the person she loved and cared for most in the world, was about to betray her in the most cruel way possible. The murder itself was carried out in a cold and calculated manner. Andre made sure that his actions were discreet, but he also took care to cover his tracks. He knew that the authorities would eventually investigate, so he carefully staged the scene to make it appear as though Colleen had simply died from an accident while taking a shower. He left the water running in the shower, hoping that it would mask any signs of foul play, but despite his efforts, the truth would eventually come to light. The deception and the least makes Andre's actions even more chilling. Is the extent to which he went to cover up his crime. He didn't just murder his mother for money. He also went to great lengths to deceive the authorities and make it appear as though her death was natural. The forged documents he submitted to the insurance companies were just the beginning. He also forged a coroner's report and a will, both of which were intended to legitimize his claim to the life insurance payouts. He made sure that everything appeared to be in order, hoping that no one would ever question his involvement. But despite his efforts to cover his tracks, the truth couldn't be hidden forever. The forged documents were eventually uncovered, and the authorities began to piece together the details of Andre's elaborate plan. The more they dug, the more they uncovered about his financial struggles, his lies, and his desperate desire to escape the consequences of his actions. The truth about Colleen's death became clear. It was a cold, calculated murder committed for financial gain. Andre's motive, the desire for money, and Escapinder's motive for killing his mother, was simple: money, but it was also about something deeper: escape. He wanted to escape the financial ruin he had created for himself. He wanted to escape the lies he had told to everyone around him, including his girlfriend. He had built an illusion of success, but beneath the surface, he was living in a constant state of fear and anxiety. Killing Colleen was his way of solving all of his problems, at least. That's what he thought. But in the end, Andre's desperate actions only led to his downfall. The very things he had done to secure his future, the forged documents, the life insurance policies, and the murder of his own mother, became the evidence that would convict him. His desire for money and his need to escape the consequences of his actions ultimately led to his arrest and conviction. Andre's life, which had once been full of hope and potential, had spiraled into a nightmare of his own making. The consequences of greed and deception. Andre's story is a tragic reminder of how greed and deception can drive a person to do unspeakable things. It also highlights the lengths to which some people will go to protect their image and maintain a facade of success. Andre's obsession with money and his desire to escape his financial troubles blinded him to the consequences of his actions. In the end, he lost everything: his freedom, his family, and his future because of a decision he made in a moment of desperation. Part 4. The investigation and the truth uncovered. Investigation into Colleen's death began with what seemed like a tragic accident: an elderly woman slipping in the shower and passing away unexpectedly. The initial signs pointed to a natural death with no obvious signs of foul play. However, as the days passed and Andre's behavior became more suspicious, the police began to investigate further. They quickly realized that the case was far from simple, and what had initially appeared to be an unfortunate accident was, in fact, a carefully planned murder. The unfolding of the investigation as the authorities began to look more closely into Colleen's death, they started to uncover a web of deceit and manipulation. Andre's immediate request for life insurance payouts from the three policies he had taken out on his mother just days before her death was the first red flag. Insurance companies are highly experienced at detecting fraud, and the timing of Andre's claim was highly suspicious. The policies, taken out only a week before Colleen's death, named him as the sole beneficiary. This was no coincidence. The investigators were quick to realize that Andre's motives might not have been as innocent as they first appeared when they discovered that Andre was deeply in debt, with over 100,000 AUD in financial liabilities. It became clear that he had something to gain from his mother's death. The life insurance policies were worth hundreds of thousands of dollars money that could potentially free him from his crushing financial problems. But it wasn't just the money that drove Andre, it was also the need to maintain the image of success he had built up. He had been living a life of illusion, portraying himself as a man with everything under control, even as his debts piled up behind the scenes. The role of the forensic investigation as the investigation continued. Forensic experts began to analyze Colleen's body more closely. Initially, it seemed like an accident, but the more the police looked, the more evidence they found that suggested foul play. The coroner's report, which had initially supported the theory of an accident, was soon revealed to be forged. Andre had submitted a fake coroner's report to the insurance companies to make Colleen's death seem accidental and to cover up his own involvement. This discovery was a turning point in the investigation. The police also discovered that Andre had been in contact with a local lawyer shortly after his mother's death, seeking advice on how to claim the insurance money. This behavior was highly unusual for someone grieving the loss of a loved one. Instead of mourning his mother's death, Andre was focused on securing the payout from the life insurance policies. His actions began to raise more and more suspicion. The digital trail, social media, and digital evidence in the digital age. Social media plays an increasingly important role in criminal investigations, and Andre's online presence was no exception. As investigators delved deeper into his social media profiles, they found a pattern of behavior that was hard to ignore. Andre had carefully curated his online persona, posting images of luxury vacations, expensive cars, and glamorous nights out with his girlfriend, Gracie Piscopo. His life seemed perfect, but the reality was far different. The police discovered that Andre had been living well beyond his means, using credit and loans to maintain his lifestyle. His social media presence painted a picture of wealth and success, but it was all a lie. In reality, Andre was struggling with significant debt, and the pressure to maintain his image was likely a factor in his decision to murder his mother. Furthermore, investigators found that Andre had been communicating with his girlfriend, Gracie, about the insurance policies and his plans to benefit from them. Gracie, who had been unaware of the depths of Andre's financial troubles, was shocked to learn of the true nature of his actions. She had trusted him, and now she was left grappling with the realization that the man she had been in a relationship with 4 years was capable of such cruelty. Uncovering the forged documents, the investigation took another significant turn when the police uncovered the full extent of Andre's deception. They found that not only had he forged the coroner's report, but he had also forged Colleen's will, which named him as the sole beneficiary of her estate. This was another crucial piece of evidence that pointed directly to Andre's guilt. He had carefully crafted a false narrative to ensure that he would receive the insurance payouts and the estate's assets after his mother's death. The forged will was a crucial piece of evidence that showed Andre's premeditated actions. He had been planning to kill his mother for months, and the life insurance policies and fake documents were all part of his scheme. He had even gone so far as to create a false will, which he believed would protect him from any legal consequences. The police were now certain that Colleen's death had not been an accident, it was murder. The testimonies, the family's realization as the investigation progressed. Colleen's family members began to realize the depth of Andre's betrayal. Fabian Rebelo, Colleen's youngest son, was devastated by the discovery that his brother had been involved in their mother's death. For Fabian, it was a painful realization that the person he had trusted the most was capable of such cruelty. He had always looked up to Andre, but now he had to confront the fact that his own brother had killed their mother for money. Other family members and close friends of Colleen were equally shocked. They had all known Andre as a loving son and had never suspected that he was capable of murder. But as the evidence piled up, the truth became undeniable. Andre had murdered his own mother for financial gain, and his actions had caused irreparable damage to their family. The once tight-knit family was now fractured, and the betrayal felt by Colleen's children was impossible to overcome. Andre's arrest and trial with the evidence against him mounting. Andre was arrested on November 22nd, 2022, and charged with the murder of his mother, Colleen. During the investigation, Andre initially denied any involvement in his mother's death, but he did admit to 4 counts of fraud related to the forged documents. As the trial progressed, the full extent of his crime became apparent. The prosecution presented evidence that Andre had been planning the murder for months, and that he had carefully orchestrated every detail of the crime. The trial was a heartbreaking experience for Colleen's family, who had to relive the tragedy of her death while also coming to terms with the fact that one of their own had committed the murder. Andre's actions had shattered their lives, and the emotional toll of the trial was immense. In the end, Andre was found guilty of murder, and on April 1st, 2025, he was sentenced to 25 years in prison. The judge, Bruno Fionnaca, described Andre's actions as a ruthless betrayal and the greatest act of cruelty. The aftermath, a family shattered. Colleen's family was left to pick up the pieces after her death, but the emotional scars would never heal. Fabian, who had been the first to discover his mother's body, was left grappling with the trauma of finding her dead. The grief of losing their mother was compounded by the shock of discovering that their own brother had been responsible for her death. Colleen's legacy was tainted by Andre's actions, and the family would never be the same again. The case of Zachary Rebelo is a tragic reminder of the destructive power of greed and the lengths to which some people will go to achieve their goals. Andre's decision to murder his mother for financial gain was a ruthless and heartless act, and the consequences of his actions will reverberate throughout his family for years to come. The story of Zachary Rebelo is a tragedy, not only for his family, but also a stark reminder of the devastating effects of greed, deceit, and betrayal. Andre proved that a person can go to extreme lengths for money, even at the cost of taking the life of the person they love the most. Although he lived a false life, presenting himself as a successful man, in the end, his wrongful actions led to consequences he couldn't escape. Andre's act of killing his mother was not only a legal crime, but also a profound betrayal of a mother who had devoted her life to nurturing and loving him. From taking out 3 life insurance policies to forging documents and constructing a fake lavish lifestyle, Andre was completely consumed by personal ambition without considering the severe consequences. Everything he did was to cover up the truth and maintain the image of a successful man, while in reality, he was facing financial failure and drowning in debt. This story also serves as an important reminder in today's society. The fake images of success presented on social media and in daily life can lead to significant harm and consequences. We must recognize that behind the scenes of luxury and success, there may often lie darkness and painful truths that are hidden from view. Call to action. The story of Zachary Rebelo is a powerful reminder of the importance of honesty, compassion, and respect for family. Remember that a person's worth is not determined by what they have or what they project, but by how they treat others, especially those closest to them. If this story has made you reflect on the values you pursue, the sincerity in your relationships, and the way you live in this world filled with facades, don't hesitate to share your thoughts in the comments below. Share your feelings about this case and the lessons you've learned from it. This story can help many people become more aware of the importance of living an authentic life and not letting greed and selfishness dictate our actions. If you found this story intriguing and want to hear more unusual cases, real crime stories, and lessons from the past, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Room 57. Every follow, every share helps us continue to bring you fascinating and informative videos. Let's build a community where people can learn and share valuable life lessons together. Thank you for taking the time to watch the video. Always remember that in every story, there are profound lessons we can learn to become better people. See you in the next video.